ground fault circuit interrupter, or GFCI receptacle, is mandatory for the boiler room. Wet or damp conditions necessitate GFCI protection to prevent electrical shock in case of a ground fault. For the built-in crawl space, a single receptacle may be allowed under specific conditions. The dirt floor must be dry and free of water inside the crawl space. There should be no signs of flooding or standing water in the crawl space. The receptacle must be installed at least 12 inches above the floor. The plug on the sump pump cord should not be changed to a twist lock. Consider these additional safety measures. Firstly, use a sump pump with a built-in float switch and alarm system. Secondly, inspect and clean check valves and pumps regularly. Thirdly, ensure the sump basin is large enough to handle potential water flow. And fourthly, consider a battery backup system for the sump pump. It is generally safer to use GFCI receptacles for sump pumps in both locations, regardless of the environment. GFCIs provide an extra layer of protection against electrical shock in the event of a ground fault. A ground fault occurs when there is an unintended path for electricity to flow to ground. This can happen if the insulation on a wire is damaged, or if water gets into an electrical device. When a ground fault occurs, electricity can flow through a person's body if they come into contact with a faulty device or the ground. This can cause an electrical shock, which can be fatal. GFCIs are designed to detect ground faults and quickly shut off the power to the circuit, preventing electrical shock. They work by monitoring the current flowing through the circuit. If the current flowing into the circuit differs from the current flowing out by even a small amount, the GFCI will trip and shut off the power. GFCIs are required in many areas of the home, including bathrooms, kitchens, and outdoor locations. They are also recommended for use with sump pumps, especially in wet or damp locations. When installing a GFCI receptacle, it is important to follow the manufacturer's instructions carefully. The receptacle should be properly grounded, and the wires should be connected correctly. It is also important to test the GFCI receptacle regularly to ensure that it is working properly. To test a GFCI receptacle, press the test button. The receptacle should trip and shut off the power. To reset the receptacle, press the reset button. If the receptacle does not trip when the test button is pressed, or if it does not reset when the reset button is pressed, it should be replaced. Single receptacles are allowed in certain circumstances, although it is always safer to use a GFCI. If a single receptacle is used, ensure the crawl space is dry, with no signs of standing water. The receptacle must be installed at least 12 inches above the floor. Do not change the plug on the sump pump cord to a twist lock. Twist lock plugs are designed to prevent accidental disconnection of equipment, but they are not necessary for sump pumps. A standard plug will work just fine. Sump pumps are typically rated for 120 volts alternating current. The amperage of the sump pump will vary depending on the model. It is important to use a receptacle that is rated for the amperage of the sump pump. The National Electrical Code, or NEC, provides guidelines for electrical installations. NEC Section 210.8 covers ground fault circuit interrupter protection for personnel. It specifies locations where GFCI protection is required. For example, NEC 210.8 A5 requires GFCI protection for receptacles installed in unfinished basements. While a crawl space may not be considered an unfinished basement, the presence of moisture and potential for ground faults makes GFCI protection a wise choice. Regarding the boiler room, the damp and wet conditions strongly suggest the need for GFCI protection. Concrete floors and walls can easily conduct electricity, increasing the risk of electrical shock. A GFCI receptacle will provide an extra layer of safety in this environment. The recommendation to use a sump pump with a built-in float switch and alarm system is another important safety measure. The float switch will automatically turn the pump on and off as needed, preventing it from running dry or overflowing. The alarm system will alert you if the pump fails or if the water level gets too high. Inspecting and cleaning check valves on pumps regularly will help to ensure that they are working properly. Check valves prevent water from flowing back into the sump basin when the pump shuts off. If the check valve is clogged or damaged, it can cause the pump to work harder and shorten its lifespan. Ensuring that the sump basin is large enough to handle potential water flow will prevent the pump from being overwhelmed during periods of heavy rain or flooding. If the basin is too small, it can overflow, causing water damage. Considering a battery backup system for the sump pump is a good idea, especially if you live in an area that is prone to power outages. A battery backup system will keep the pump running even if the power goes out, preventing your basement or crawl space from flooding. In summary, while a single receptacle may be permissible in a dry crawl space under certain conditions, it is always safer to use a GFCI receptacle, particularly in a damp boiler room. Always prioritize safety when dealing with electricity and consult with a qualified electrician if you have any questions or concerns. Furthermore, understanding the function of a GFCI device can greatly improve your understanding of electrical safety. A GFCI constantly monitors the current flowing in a circuit. If it detects any leakage current, which indicates a potential ground fault, it quickly trips the circuit, cutting off power and preventing electrical shock. This is especially important in damp or wet locations where the risk of electrical shock is higher. The NEC is a comprehensive set of standards that govern electrical installations in the United States. It is updated every 3 years to reflect the latest advancements in electrical safety. Adhering to the NEC guidelines is crucial for ensuring the safety of electrical systems. When installing electrical equipment, it is important to use the correct wiring and components. The wiring should be properly sized for the load, and the components should be rated for the voltage and current. It is also important to follow the manufacturer's instructions carefully. Before working on any electrical equipment, always disconnect the power at the breaker box. Use a voltage tester to verify that the power is off. Wear appropriate safety gear, such as gloves and eye protection. If you are not comfortable working with electricity, hire a qualified electrician. Working with electricity can be dangerous, and it is important to take precautions to protect yourself from electrical shock. Electrical safety is a critical aspect of home maintenance and should never be overlooked. Regular inspections of electrical systems can help to identify potential hazards and prevent accidents. By understanding the principles of electrical safety and following the NEC guidelines, you can create a safer environment for yourself and your family. The choice between a GFCI receptacle and a single receptacle for a sump pump depends on several factors, including the location of the pump, the environmental conditions, and local electrical codes. While a single receptacle may be permissible in certain situations, a GFCI receptacle is always the safer option. GFCIs provide an extra layer of protection against electrical shock, which is especially important in wet or damp locations. In addition to GFCI protection, there are other safety measures that can be taken to protect against electrical shock. These include using a sump pump with a built-in float switch and alarm system, inspecting and cleaning check valves and pumps regularly, ensuring that the sump basin is large enough to handle potential water flow, and considering a battery backup system for the sump pump. By taking these safety measures, you can help to prevent electrical shock and protect your property from water damage. When selecting a sump pump, it is important to choose a model that is appropriate for your needs. Consider the size of your sump basin, the amount of water you need to pump, and the vertical distance that the water needs to be lifted. It is also important to choose a pump that is energy efficient. Sump pumps can consume a significant amount of electricity, so choosing an energy efficient model can save you money on your utility bills. Regular maintenance is essential for ensuring that your sump pump is working properly. Inspect the pump regularly for signs of wear and tear. Clean the pump and the sump basin to remove any debris. Replace the pump if it is not working properly. A properly maintained sump pump can help to protect your property from water damage and prevent costly repairs.